Welcome back to Investing Talk podcast.
Glad to be here.
Today, we're diving into something crucial for a lot of investors, upcoming earnings reports. And specifically, we're going to focus on Rubrik.
Ah, yes, Rubrik. Lots of buzz around them since the IPO.
Exactly. So what can we expect from their next report? And maybe more importantly, what should you be watching for?
Good question. We'll try and unpack that.
Okay, but before we get started, just a quick reminder, if you find these discussions helpful, please take a second to subscribe, like, and comment.
Yeah, it genuinely helps us reach more listeners.
It really does. And if you feel like supporting us a bit more, you could consider buying us a coffee. The link's usually around somewhere.
We appreciate that.
Oh, and one more thing. If there's a company you want us to look into for a future analysis, just drop its name in the comments below. We'll definitely try to consider it.
Always good to hear what people are interested in.
So, Rubrik. Upcoming earnings. It's, newly public. That always adds that extra layer of intrigue. And sometimes, let's be honest, some volatility.
For sure. New IPOs are always fascinating to watch.
So what's actually on the horizon for them? What can we realistically pull from the info we have?
Right. That's the key, isn't it? Rubrik is still so early in its public journey. Every single report carries significant weight. It really shapes the narrative. So yeah, we'll look at the details for the upcoming report. Their admittedly very limited history, the wider cybersecurity market context, and potential scenarios investors should probably be thinking about.
Okay.
The goal is just to give you a clear, sort of concise overview, help you understand what's really important here.
All right, let's unpack this then. When exactly are we expecting to hear from Rubrik, and what are the initial expectations, like on the street?
Okay, so Rubrik is expected to report its earnings on September 9, 2025, and that'll be after the market closes.
September 9th, after the close.
Yeah, got it. And the numbers.
Well, looking at the analyst consensus, based on Zacks data, the estimate for earnings per share, or EPS, is sitting at negative $0.33.
Negative 33 cents.
Oh.
Okay, but here's something interesting. There's actually no explicit consensus revenue estimate readily available from those sources right now.
No revenue consensus. That does make things a bit trickier, doesn't it?
It does. It likely means the focus might shift even more heavily onto that EPS number, and probably just as important, whatever management says in their commentary.
Right, the qualitative stuff becomes even more critical. Did they give us any hints before? Any guidance from the company itself?
Well, management last provided guidance specifically for Q1 of fiscal 26. That was back during their June 5th conference call and press release.
Okay, so for the quarter they already reported.
Exactly. But explicit Q2 guidance. Honestly, it isn't easily found in the public sources we've looked at for this analysis.
So a bit of a black box for Q2 guidance then.
Kind of. Investors would really need to go directly to Rubrik's official investor relations website, check out their webcasts and materials for the most current info.
Always best to go straight to the source, especially with newer companies.
Absolutely. Things can change fast.
Okay, so Rubrik is pretty new to the public markets. Historical data is, scarce.
Very scarce, yeah. Just one quarter.
But even with just that one data point, what can we actually learn from their single past earnings surprise? Did it tell us anything?
This is where it gets really interesting, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Especially for a new public company. Like you said, we only have that one quarter, Q1 fiscal 26, reported back on June 5th, 2025.
Right.
In that report, Rubrik posted an actual EPS of negative 33 cents around.
Okay, negative 15 cents. And the estimate was?
The estimate was that negative 0 to 33 cents we mentioned earlier.
Wow. Okay, so they beat it significantly.
Hugely. That's a positive surprise of plus 54.5%.
Over 50%. That's quite a statement for your first public quarter.
It really is. It's a strong signal right out of the gate. Suggests the company definitely outperformed those initial, maybe somewhat conservative expectations.
A 54.5% beat is impressive for anyone, let alone a fresh IPO. So, what does this maybe hint at for key trends, even with such limited data? Are we reading too much into one number?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? But if you connect the dots, despite the limited data, that big positive surprise does hint at maybe rapid operating leverage kicking in, or just really strong revenue growth coming through faster than expected.
Operating leverage. Meaning they're scaling efficiently.
Exactly. Making more profit on each additional dollar of revenue. And importantly, Rubrik showed year-over-year improvement in EPS in that report. They went from negative $1.58 a year prior to that negative 15 cents.
Okay, that year-over-year jump is also pretty stark.
It is. So as a newly public company, The focus for them and for investors is clearly going to be on narrowing those losses, right? And showing they can achieve significant scale in cloud security.
Makes sense.
That initial improvement suggests they are, at least initially, on that path. It's encouraging.
Okay, encouraging, but just one data point noted. Now, beyond the numbers themselves, were there any major news events, any catalysts during the quarter since that last report that might sway this upcoming one?
From the sources we checked, there weren't any publicly reported material press releases from Rubrik during the quarter since that last earnings call in June.
Really? Pretty quiet then.
It seems that way, on the major news front at least. Of course, investors should always keep an eye on Rubrik's official IR page for any updates, but yeah, based on what's widely reported, it looks like a relatively quiet period for company-specific news.
Okay, so if there's no specific company news driving things, we have to kind of zoom out, right?
Right.
What about the broader sector? How's the cybersecurity market doing generally, and what economic trends might be influencing Rubrik?
Right, and that sector context is fascinating here. Cybersecurity as a whole, it definitely remains a high-growth area. That's pretty clear.
Still a hot space.
Very much so. We're seeing continued, enterprise digital transformation, and unfortunately, those heightened cyber threats both are driving really robust demand for companies like Rubrik.
So demand is strong.
Demand seems strong, yes, but there's always a but, isn't there?
Usually.
While their peers are reporting strong demand, they're also facing valuation scrutiny and budget scrutiny, too, especially in this higher interest rate environment we're in.
The macro impact. Belt tightening.
Exactly. So it raises this important question. Can Rubrik keep up its growth trajectory and really demonstrate its value proposition when customers might be getting more cautious with their spending?
It's a balancing act, then. Strong need versus tighter budgets.
Precisely. It's a bit of a tightrope they have to walk.
And given that backdrop, what are the analysts saying about Rubrik specifically? Are they generally positive, negative, cautious?
The general consensus from the analysts we've seen seems to be that Rubrik is executing pretty well.
Okay, that's positive.
Yeah, and importantly, its EPS seems to be improving faster than many had initially feared, which ties back to that big Q1 beat.
Right.
However, the market overall is still quite cautious, on these high multiple tech names, especially until there's a really clear demonstrated path to operating profitability, not just narrowing losses, but actually getting into the black consistently.
The path to profit, always key for growth stocks.
Absolutely critical. And for a newly public company like Rubrik, establishing that clear path is just paramount for investor confidence. It's very much a show-me story right now.
A show-me story. I like that. Okay, now shifting gears slightly. Let's talk market signals. What are the options markets telling us? How big of a move are traders actually pricing in for Rubrik after these earnings come out?
Yes, implied volatility. This is where it gets really interesting for watching market sentiment, especially around earnings.
Always fascinating to see what the options market thinks.
Totally. So as of this week, the implied volatility ahead of Rubrik's earnings is elevated.
Elevated, meaning the market expects a big move.
That's exactly it. Now, it's not entirely surprising. It's pretty typical for recent IPOs and definitely for companies in tech and cybersecurity. Those sectors tend to see bigger swings.
Sure. More uncertainty, more potential volatility.
Right. So what this elevated IV means is that the market is anticipating a pretty sizable movement in the stock price, up or down, after the earnings are released.
Okay.
You can look at metrics like the implied straddle price, which you find on options analytics platforms like Market Chameleon, for instance. That price basically tells you how much of a percentage move options traders are collectively pricing in.
So it gives you a magnitude, but not direction.
Precisely. It gauges the expected size of the reaction. It really raises an important question for investors, doesn't it? Is the market kind of overreacting here because the public track record is so limited? Or is this expectation of a big move justified?
Yeah, is the fear or excitement premium warranted? Good question. Okay, so putting all this together, the history, the context, the market expectation, what are the potential outcomes here? Let's maybe paint a picture of the bullish case first. What would that look like?
Okay, a bullish scenario. Well, in that case, you'd likely see Rubrik accelerate its revenue growth even further and, crucially, narrow its operating losses even more quickly than people are expecting.
So better top line and better bottom line trends.
Exactly. And that would probably be driven by evidence of strong customer retention, keeping the customers they have, and a really robust pipeline of new deals.
Okay.
On top of that, you'd want to hear management provide really confident guidance for the rest of the fiscal year, something that signals continued strength.
Upbeat outlook.
Yeah. And sort of implicitly, this scenario would also mean that cybersecurity demand is holding up well, despite those macro concerns, and that Rubrik is successfully taking market share.
Got it. That's the rosy picture. Now, what about the flip side? What would a bearish outcome look like for Rubrik?
Okay, the bearish case. That would likely involve growth, decelerating more sharply than expected,
Yeah.
or maybe seeing their gross margins contract, which would pressure profitability.
Slower growth or less profit on each sale?
Right. Either of those could lead to operating losses actually increasing again, or at least not narrowing as hoped. And then there's the commentary.
Always important.
Very. If management talks about heightened competitive pressures, maybe specific competitors eating into their deals, or if they highlight negative macroeconomic impacts really hurting enterprise spending, that would definitely weigh heavily on sentiment.
Concerns about competition or the economy hitting home.
Yeah. And certainly, any reduction in their full-year outlook or any comments that raise concerns about their long-term path to profitability could easily drive the stock price down.
Okay, two very different potential paths there. So, given these possibilities, when that report actually drops on September 9th, what are the absolute key metrics you think people should be laser focused on?
Right, boiling it down. I think the most critical metrics are definitely the EPS progression. Are they continuing that trend of narrowing losses we saw in Q1? That's number one.
EPS trend, got it.
And number two, even without a specific consensus estimate to beat, the revenue growth rate itself is still hugely important. Is it accelerating, stable, decelerating?
Okay, EPS and revenue growth. What else?
Beyond those headline numbers, you absolutely have to pay close attention to management's commentary, specifically on things like customer wins, any color on customer retention trends, and critically, any signs of gross margin expansion. Are they getting more profitable on the core business?
So the story behind the numbers.
Exactly. Those qualitative insights are just crucial for understanding the real health and the future trajectory of the business. They give context to the figures.
Makes sense. So after considering all these points, the limited history, that strong first beat, the sector dynamics, the market expectations, what's the overall leaning here for Rubrik's upcoming earnings? Bullish, bearish, neutral?
Okay, our overall leaning, I'd say, is neutral to cautiously bullish.
Neutral to cautiously bullish. Okay, why the caution?
Well, there's definitely positive momentum, right? Especially on the margin front and seemingly on sales progress, judging by that Q1 beat.
Yeah.
That's encouraging. But you have to acknowledge the substantial execution risk. It's still a relatively new public company. That track record is limited, as we've said. And the broader sector sentiment towards these kinds of stocks can be fickle, especially regarding valuation.
Right, the market context adds risk.
Exactly. So a balanced approach feels warranted. It's not a slam dunk, but the signs lean slightly positive, hence cautiously bullish.
Okay, cautiously bullish. So if you had to put a number on it, like a confidence score for that outlook, say 1 to 10?
Ooh, confidence score, let's see. 6 out of 10.
A6. Okay, and the reasoning is basically what you just said.
Pretty much, yeah. The positive momentum on margins and sales is real and pulls the score up. But that limited public track record, combined with those sector sentiment risks we talked about,
Yeah.
that warrants keeping the confidence level measured,
Yeah.
not getting carried away.
Prudent.
It's a promising story, definitely, but still very early days in its public life.
All right. So for listeners who might be considering trading around this event, and we know options are pricing in a big move, what strategies should they maybe keep in mind, especially with that elevated implied volatility?
Right. Well, given that the options market is anticipating a large post-earnings move, those traders who are specifically event-driven might look at volatility strategies.
Like straddles or strangles.
Exactly. Things like straddles or strangles. Those plays profit if the stock moves significantly in either direction, up or down, covering the cost of the options. They're betting on volatility itself.
Playing the size of the move, not the direction.
Precisely. But, and this is crucial, you absolutely have to check live market makers for the exact pricing of those straddles and the current implied volatility right before you act. Those prices change constantly.
Good disclaimer. What about people who do have a directional view?
For directional traders, honestly, given the uncertainty and potential for a big swing, waiting for confirmation after the report might be a more prudent approach.
Let the dust settle a bit.
Yeah, see how the market digests the news. See if a clear trend emerges in the hours or day after the report. It reduces the risk of getting caught on the wrong side of a big immediate reaction.
Makes sense.
So it really brings up a question for any investor looking at this. Are you trying to capitalize on that expected volatility before or during the announcement? Or are you more comfortable waiting for clearer signals after the event itself?
A key strategic decision for sure. Well, that was an incredibly insightful look into Rubrik's upcoming earnings. We've really covered a lot of ground-ups, the dates, the expectations, a limited history, the market context, hopefully giving everyone a solid understanding of what's at stake.
Absolutely. I think the key takeaway, really, for anyone watching Rubrik is just to remember that while that initial Q1 performance was definitely strong, the real test for any growth company is always consistent execution
Consistency is key.
and the ability to navigate those broader market conditions, especially in a dynamic sector like cybersecurity. This upcoming report is just another crucial chapter in their ongoing story.
Indeed it is. And, understanding an investment is always an ongoing journey. So maybe here's a final thought for you, our listeners, to mull over.
Okay.
For a company like Rubrik, newly public, high growth, but in a sector that's getting more scrutiny, how much weight should the market, or should you, place on a single, really big earnings surprise compared to, say, a pattern of smaller but more consistent beats over time? Which one builds more long-term confidence?
Consistency versus magnitude. That's a great question to ponder.
Something to think about. Thank you for joining us on Investing Talk podcast today. We really hope this discussion helps you feel well-informed and more confident in your understanding of Rubrik's situation heading into earnings.
Hope it was helpful.
Don't forget to subscribe, maybe leave us a review if you enjoyed it, and share this with anyone else you think might benefit. We'll be back soon with another exploration into the world of investing.